Welcome to Nomads Tactical. I'm Dennis Weimer, your host, owner, and director of training. We're going to continue on with our Knowledge is Power series. Today we're going to continue on with our trigger reset and having control of our trigger. So if you look at this animation here by International Mobile Training Team, we can see that when the trigger is pulled, the firing pin is pulled back and then released, strikes the primer, the explosion happens, the bullet leaves, then the chamber unlocks, strips that spent shell out, hits your ejector, the shell flies out, the slide grabs a new one out of the magazine, loads up into the chamber, and gets the gun ready for the next shot. Now we can see our feed ramp right here, like we talked about in the last video. And we'll watch how the bullet will ride up this feed ramp after it fires. Now watch as the slide strips it out of the magazine. It will ride up the feed ramp and go up into the chamber. So this has got a pretty steep feed ramp, and we talked about that last week. The main thing we want to take away from this is that the bullet leaves before you feel it, and that's the hardest thing to understand. But you can see that in this double action gun, explosion happens, bullet leaves, then the chamber unlocks, and the shell is ejected, meaning the bullet leaves before you feel it. So your trigger press is the most important thing you can do. Now if we look at this from another way, this is from the other angle, okay? So we watch the gun here. We can see the explosion. There's the bullet, okay? Now look at the gun. Bullet's still traveling. Look at the slide just starting to move. There goes a bullet leaving the scene. And now the slide hits the back and your felt recoil. So again, the bullet leaves before you feel the recoil. So when we were talking about the other day, so this is 9mm. We'll show you it is empty. We can see through it. Okay, nothing in here. So when we're pressing the trigger, we've got a little bit of pre-travel. We're going to take that pre-travel out, then we're going to slowly build pressure, pound by pound. So 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds. Oh, it surprised me and went off. Now the key here is to keep the trigger back. Don't let go. So trigger's still back. I'm going to pretend the gun fired. Trigger's still back. Get my sights lined back up. I'm back on target. I'm going to make a deliberate action to reset the trigger. Just to reset no further and slowly start to build pressure again so it's a surprise when it goes off. Now, if you are concerned about getting your finger off the trigger, psychologically you're going to mash the trigger because you got to get your finger off the trigger. And when you mash the trigger, you disrupt your sight picture like we saw in the last video and your shot goes low. So we want to press this trigger so slow that we could rest a shell on here. And when we reset and press, it doesn't go anywhere. Now, at 5 to 7 yards, your gun is capable of exactly the same hole for every single shot. If it's not exactly the same hole, it's your fault. The gun only does what the user tells it to do. So your key to being accurate is to slowly press this trigger so it's a surprise. It must be a surprise when it goes off, and keep the trigger back. Don't let go. This is the difference of fine motor skills versus gross motor skills. Fine motor skills is a deliberate action to only reset the trigger with minimal movement. Just reset and slowly start building pressure. So if you look at how much movement is needed to reset this trigger. That's it. Reset, press. Once you're done shooting, then your finger can come off and be indexed like we've all been taught. But minimal movement of the trigger makes you more accurate. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember your ABCs. Always be carrying.